People leaving the military are entering a different world. It may be a safer world in civilian life, but it's one filled with unfamiliar customs and new challenges, especially in today's tough economy. Put simply, new military veterans have got to find jobs. That's something Kevin Denny wanted to get at when he started a new business. The very name of his business spells it out pretty clearly. Kevin is CEO of Troop Transition. He joins me in studio, and Kevin, thanks for coming in.
You bet. Nice to be here.
And also joining me in studio is a military veteran who took part in what Troop Transition had to offer. His name is Don Reid. And Don, thanks very much.
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
And Don, you served in
the Marine Corps?
Marine Corps.
Yes.
Okay. And listeners, if you would like to give us a call, if you're a military veteran yourself and you've had to go through the challenge of finding a job after you served, we'd love to hear your story. Call us at 888-895-5727. That's 888-895-KPBS to join the conversation. Kevin, I'm going to start with you. How did you get involved with Troop Transition, and how did you determine that there was a need for this kind of a program?
Sure. It started kind of serendipitously. I was living in San Diego. We have a large community of veterans and active duty folks here. And so engaged with those folks and literally on a golf course with a general and a colonel started asking about what's the fate that faces the enlisted men and women. And as we looked at that, the employment or unemployment numbers are very significant and high. 27% of those who serve as enlisted folks will end up on the unemployment line. 40% will live up under the poverty line, and 25% will see some kind of homelessness. So there's clearly an issue. We see these folks serving with distinction and honor in a uniform. Then we see them sometime later with a cardboard sign asking for help with food and money. We took a look at the systems that were in place and made some simple changes relative to the timing at which we addressed this problem. Started with industry, moved into educational systems, teamed up with the military, and found that there was a way of affecting significant and lasting change.
How tough is the transition for a service member going from being a soldier to being a civilian?
Well, the enlisted folks have a high school diploma. They generally serve, 65% of them will serve for about 4 years. They, more often than not, will marry their high school sweetheart and have a child. As they leave the military, their pay and their benefits stay inside the gate, and there's a tremendous financial pressure. It makes it difficult to deploy your GI Bill educational benefits. You've got to pay the rent and food and medical, and their skill set, the hard skills, don't transition well. We know these people to be honorable, to have a commitment, to be responsible and disciplined, team-oriented, and yet their primary responsibility is to defend our nation. That is a different skill set than a civilian requires.
So, Troop Transition, what kind of programs, what kind of training and certification do you offer to folks?
We started with industries that are large and uniquely stationed in the United States: oil and gas, power distribution and generation, transportation and logistics. We met with the employers and asked them what would a good employee look like, and that allowed us to take that specification and create a curriculum. And so with that curriculum, we moved into truck driving, transportation. We moved into roughnecking, oil and gas. We moved into solar and wind power, and now mining and rail and other logistics. And those credentials are the ticket to employment.
How are these programs paid for? Is there a tuition that the veteran pays? Do you have grant funding?
We are not grant funded. We are a for-profit business. We don't seek public assistance. There are two entitlements that those who serve are able to engage. One is tuition assistance, an active duty use or lose benefit, and that's what we currently use. There's no cost to the service member. We tap into a government-provided education entitlement. The veterans will use their GI Bill, and we're working through the bureaucracy to apply for that. Our motto was Johnny gets a job, Johnny does not pay, and Johnny gets to live where he wants to.
Well, let's talk to Don Reid just a little bit about this because I know that he's been through your training. And Don, you're a recent graduate from what they call the T2E Energy program. What were your concerns as you neared the end of your military service and you were looking to the future?
Mostly, my concerns came from wondering if when I do get out of the military, would I have that stability that I had when I was in the military. Going through that course, it pretty much answered all of my concerns. It gave me a path to go ahead and pursue what I wanted to do when I get out as far as being in an energy field. It gave me the versatility as far as being able to choose which side of the troops to energy I wanted to take. And it pretty much was a fulfilling course all in all.
How long did you serve?
I served for 4 years.
For 4 years?
Yes.
And what kind of work did you do in the military?
I was actually in the logistics field. So I was in charge of pretty much getting transportation from one place to another, packaging, strapping down, tying down. Anything that dealt with movement, that pretty much was our area of expertise, and we took care of that for the military.
Getting back to you, Kevin, you said that a lot of the hard skills that they learn in the military don't apply that well to civilian life. Now, doing logistics, would that not necessarily apply to civilian life?
In some cases it would, and it depends a lot on branch of service and then what's also known as your MOS, Military Occupational Specialty. The vast majority of those who wear the uniform are what are known as grunts. They're in the infantry, and that skill set is really not transferable. Don has the ability to move into the logistics, but as you heard him, he wanted to explore energy. And in order to do so, he needed a bridge, and that bridge is short-cycle, vocational-based training and credentialing. And so that's what we created, and we brought it to Donald and his peers before they exit the military. So they leave with a job offer in hand.
And Kevin Denny is CEO of Troop Transition, a company that tries to provide training to military veterans so they can get a job in civilian life. Don Reid is one of the guys who took advantage of that training. He is a T2E Energy graduate, now works for Berg Electric. And listeners, if you want to give us a call to join the conversation, 888-895-KPBS. Don, what was the nature of your training? What did you learn to do?
As far as the military or Troops to Energy?
T2E Energy.
We learned pretty much the basic as far as learning how to service solar panels. We learned safety measures as far as learning how to rescue people from wind turbines. These were all from, how could I say, being able to do practical application in classrooms. We also learned how to identify basic safety measures for the electrical field. We learned a lot of basic standard safety precautions and measures as far as those fields goes with windmills, turbines, solar panels, and electrical.
And how long did that take you? How long did you train?
It was an 8-week course.
8-week course,
Yes.
Okay. And now you're working for Berg Electric. Are you applying the skills that you learned in T2E Energy?
Yes.
You are? Okay. Are you working with solar panels, or are you working with a variety of things?
We're able to work with solar panels. The Berg is actually starting up a solar division, and they're allowing their employees who are certified of that credential to be able to work on that side of Berg. However, that is still in the works, and for now, we're just applying what we're learning as far as the electrical side of Troops to Energy in Berg Electrics right now.
Any electricians in your family, or was this just sort of a new thing for you?
This is just a new thing for me.
One issue that I'd like to ask both of you about is how the transition works, not just in terms of the skill set you have, but socially. Kevin, how is life in the military different from life in the civilian world?
It's a great question. The military is very much an institution. It's a bureaucracy, and it manages huge numbers of people, of equipment, of locations. And so you need a very orchestrated and defined environment. It is managed by chain of command and control and communication systems. It has an authority or a hierarchical structure. The civilian world is, whether that be economically or practically speaking, is much more or much less disciplined in terms of its structure and form. There's a creative element. There's a need for profit versus budget. There is a different communication. There's a cadence. There's a language, and there's a uniform outside of the military that we need to help and prepare these folks to wear. Mm-hmm. You know, the military is the best at changing a person from a civilian into a soldier. You needed boot camp to get in. There is no boot camp equivalent to move you back out. And we are really focused on that boot camp training to become a civilian.
Well, what do you do to help people learn some of those soft skills?
Some of it is awareness training. Some of it is done through role-playing and observing. Some of it is done through field trip studies. It is intended to help folks understand a life in the day of a civilian, a life in the day of an electrician or a roughneck. And it's that awareness that creates connection and retention and productivity. The skill, the knowledge, and the action come together and create an income and a sustainable platform.
And I'm sorry, Kevin, you served in the military?
I did not.
Oh, you did not? Okay. So let me ask a guy who's an expert in that, Don Reid. What would you like to say about this subject, learning to operate in the civilian world as opposed to in a military culture?
Well, Kevin pretty much said it. He hit it right on the nail. It's pretty much the lifestyle. Coming out, you are, how could I say, you're not expected to do the same things that you were expected to do when you once in the military. However, that discipline, that commitment is what everybody looks at you for. That's what they know you as because of that military plateau that you once stood on. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that provides a good, how could I say, foundation for a new beginning. And coming into the civilian sector, that's something that, how could I say, a lot of employers probably emphasize on because it allows them to know that it'll make them better not only now but in the future.
Do you find that employers, maybe a question for both of you, do you find that employers want to hire military veterans? What about you, Don?
I would feel so. Yes.
You felt that the place where you were looking for a job, they saw you as having come from a background that was desirable.
Yes.
And what about you, Kevin? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that is the crux of the matter. While as employers and civilians, we want to not only employ our nation's finest, but we want to honor their service, and it's a difficult transition. You heard last week of some programs regarding tax credits and other focuses out of Washington, D.C. The reality is that employers are still motivated by the profit incentive, and they will look to the best candidate for the purposes of filling their particular need. In the case of a military background, it may be that the skill set is not so transferable as to fill the need at the industry level. What we've done is we've changed that by creating the skill set, combining it with the military platform, and making that a home run.
And Kevin Denny is CEO of Troop Transition, and Don Reid is a Troop 2 Energy graduate of the program that they have at Troop Transition. Kevin, how long have you been in business?
We're about 5 years old.
5 years old, and how are things going?
Going great. We operate on both coasts. We have put, in the last 18 months, about 1,800 folks have been through our programs. Those folks are earning almost $30 million in wages. They are paying taxes back into the system that more than cover the expense of being involved. We think very much about creating a taxpayer, and we think the taxpayer analogy is the American dream. Donald fought to defend that dream, and we think he ought to live it. And by putting an income and benefits on the table, he's able to do exactly that.
And Don, anything to add to that? You're paying taxes. You're doing all those things that
pretty much. I just feel that for as far as opportunity, when you're in the service, just don't leave a blind eye to opportunity. Be able to know what you have and what you're able to capitalize on, and take full advantage of it.
Your GI Bill paid for the fee for the training program?
Well, as Kevin was saying, we used tuition assistance. It's a use it or lose it, pretty much program that we have in the military. It's for active military members only. And we are able to use that, and they give us a certain amount per fiscal year to go ahead and compensate for classes that we take. And we are able to use that, and they give us a certain amount per fiscal year to go ahead and compensate for classes that we take. And we are able to use that, and they give us a certain amount per fiscal year to go ahead and compensate for classes that we take we were able to use. I was able to use a whole fiscal year to compensate for troops transition and take care of that and use that opportunity.
So at this point, what are your goals?
To continue working for Berg.
To continue working for Berg. Any last thing you want to say, Kevin?
Sure. Well, Donald is exactly what we look for, because he's not only used his tuition assistance as it's intended to be used, he's now a taxpayer, but he is also using his GI Bill to go on and get a 4-year degree in an entrepreneurial program. So a job creates a stable platform from which to continue to use educational benefits for what they were meant to. It's fabulous.
And Kevin Denny is CEO of Troop Transition, a company which provides training, job training for people coming out of the military. Kevin, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to Don Reid, who served in the Marine Corps, and he is a graduate of Troop Transition's Troop to Energy program. And Don, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Don now works for Berg Electric. I'm Tom Fudge. You're listening to Midday.